Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind podcast. My name is Grace Sumbu and I am your host. Today's episode is sponsored by Cleveland Homes, where you dream it and they build it. The Mastermind podcast is a platform where we share personal development experiences of people who have gone through the services of the Mastermind. Today, I have an amazing guest in the building. We haven't seen in many years, but trust me, this conversation is going to be an enriching one. Welcome, Kesmap.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Is there any other thing you would want me to say about you to
Well,
the audience? Or would you like to introduce yourself?
okay, maybe let me introduce myself.
Please.
Okay, I would like to describe myself as a business development professional and a creative entrepreneur. I
Fantastic.
have experience that spans over a wide range of business activities, from marketing to business development to working with nonprofits and working with the private sector, and a huge passion and flair for music. So equally own my own record label company. So yeah, and I'm on the board of a few other companies that range from hospitality to agriculture and just a wide range of other forms of business.
Amazing. I couldn't have been able to do justice to your
Mm,
introduction, Kesmap. Speaking about personal development, what does clarity mean to you?
mm. I would say clarity is your ability to be precise. When you talk of clarity, in my mind, I imagine you understand where you're going, you understand what it takes, there's no ambiguity, there's no cumbersomeness, there's just no form of misunderstanding as to what you want to achieve. So it means being precise, it means being focused, it means being clear-headed and just having a clear mind as to what you're put on this earth to do.
Amazing. I mean, I love it when people are able to define terms in a very simple and relatable manner.
Mm.
As a business development professional, do you think at the time you engaged in the Clarity Retreat and the Mastermind, or the Mind Gym rather, of the Mastermind, did you think that you didn't need clarity?
No, I wasn't, I wasn't thinking about it from the perspective that I didn't need clarity. I imagine that a lot of times you need to have an understanding. I didn't think I knew what life had in store for me. At that point where I was, I know I wanted more. I felt like my talents were underutilized. I felt I could do much more than I was doing at that point. And when the opportunity came, I was like, you know what? This is a very good opportunity to dig deeper, to look at myself as a talented person who was underutilized, not pursuing my dreams like I wanted to pursue my dreams, not holding myself accountable, sort of just wishing things. I remember when I was a certain age, I won't call my age now, but when I was a certain age, I had promised myself, I said I was going to be a millionaire by the age of 25. When I got to 25, I wasn't a millionaire. And I asked myself, what did you do to be a millionaire? I was like, nothing. I imagined being a millionaire would just happen. So I realized that a lot of the things we long for needs action, needs focus, needs some level of energy that comes from us. So when the opportunity came, I was like, I'm going to jump on this. It's an opportunity to understand what I want to do in my life, my passion, my vision, what sort of actions I should be taking. So yes, I didn't feel like I needed clarity. I thought I needed it at that point.
I like how very precise and confident you are about the subject of clarity. Can you walk us through what that process was like for you?
Hmm. Okay, so a little bit of history. How did I get into the Mastermind group? Basically, we were all colleagues, I would put it that way. We all were members of Toastmasters International. We wanted to be better public speakers. And to give a good speech, you have to sort of read wide. You have to understand the topic you're talking about, and the offer came. He said, look, we're a bunch of people going to set up a mastermind, and I think you'd be a good candidate for it. I was a bit apprehensive. What does that mean, first of all? I was hesitant when my coach spoke to me and he said, he wanted me to be part of the group, and I was really not sure. I was like, okay, do I want to be around people I'm not very close to, but at the same time would be forced to sort of get very close and personal. But I feel like life is about opportunity and taking it. And I was kind of excited. As much as I wasn't sure and I was maybe a little nervous, I was literally excited about the opportunity. I jumped at it. So joining the mastermind, I would say, was one of the best decisions I made that year. It's unbelievable the amount of growth I experienced in, I would say, a span of 3 months. And it was ridiculous. It showed me the possibility that could happen if you were focused, you were determined, you were around like-minded people, you were sort of getting a form of guidance to what you could accomplish, how much talent was in each one of us that was not being tapped. So it was a huge, 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 huge improvement in my life. So I would say that was the history. That's how I got into the mastermind. It first came as a suggestion that became a huge, remarkable thing in my life. So yes, it was a good experience, I would say.
I would say more or less like an invitation.
Invitation, probably, yes. Correct.
Because coach could have suggested, by the way, do you want to share who this person was, who this coach is?
So Coach Victor Onoche.
Okay.
He's a friend. I never knew him in that dimension, that he had such depth. I knew he read a lot, but it was an invitation. I guess he took his time, he observed, and he invited me to be part of the group. And I thought it was a privilege to be part of, I would say, an elite group of brilliant people who were all trying to accomplish great things in their lives and who sort of had respect, mutual respect, understanding, empathy, were willing to support each other. People could be vulnerable and not feel judged. People could sort of bring their flaws to the table and say, look, this is where I'm suffering, this is where I'm struggling, this is where I need help, and get it, and just not be judged for not being perfect. But then you are around a bunch of people who truly want the best for you and equally are going somewhere. So like they say, if you're around 10 rich people, you're going to be number 11. So that's what it signified at that point in time.
I really love that you brought that up, because when you find yourself in the wrong company and you realize that you aren't progressing, then that company isn't meant for you.
Very true.
It isn't. So, thank you for sharing the history. Now, walk us through the process. How long was this for? What did you gain out of this? Was there 1, 2, 3, or more significant experiences that changed the trajectory of your life?
Well, yes. I would say yes. Let's put it this way. It was how structured the whole process was. It wasn't haphazard. It wasn't not planned. It was very organized. So the first thing I know we did was get into a group. We had few rules, few expectations were read to us, what was expected from each one of us, the level of dedication we're meant to have. It was made clear to us that we were going to read a couple of books, and you were expected to review those books, expected to share your ideas on those books, and then a few other things were going to happen. There was accountability, there was goal setting, there was all those great things that come. So it wasn't just about reading books. It was also about setting goals, being accountable to your goals, So I would say the first thing that struck out for me was we handled the mind, because that was the foundation. We read books that dealt with our understanding as human beings and the fundamental place where everything happened, which was our mind. And every good thing comes from the mind. Every bad thing comes from the mind. So I think that was a mind shift for me, because I didn't imagine how much power came from just my thinking, my thought process. So that was also a very new idea. But the deeper I understood it, the more it was very important to understand that, like they say, the plague is in the head. The plague is in the head. So we started from there. So it was very foundational. You first have to change your thinking, then change your life. So the foundation was very well set. And along the path, we started reading other books. We started having other forms of exercise that delve deeper into what our aspirations as people were. And I think that was a huge, remarkable thing on me as a person, right? Because I don't know if I want to jump into the books I read that had
Feel
a
free,
profound
feel free.
impact.
I was going to ask you, but please just
Right. I'm going to just,
flow.
yeah.
Flow.
So I came to that group knowing that I wanted more clarity concerning music. I know that I've always had a passion for wanting to set up a music company, and I just hadn't taken the right steps or the actions. I knew it was just more like a dream or like a hobby. I used to produce music, but I was like, I want to make this thing happen because I feel like that's what I want to do for the rest of my life, be a creative. And so I came there with a very specific purpose in mind. And I read a couple of books, but one stood out for me, and it said, "Obstacle is the way," right? And if you touch that book, it talks about resistance. It talks about everybody having a form of Janus. And then you obviously have to fight resistance because resistance doesn't want great things to happen in your life. It doesn't want good things to happen. And it made sense. It made sense why I couldn't put out music. I was struggling to put out good things. I was struggling to bring out my Janus. And you find out that you are really at battle with yourself. You have to overcome the limitations in your mind. You have to overcome the limitations that we have created for ourselves. So that was a huge, huge thing for me, to overcome the ideas, to see how much of an effort I needed to put in, and being around people who sort of could hold me accountable, could tell me to set my goals, and were very practical. It wasn't just only the eagle eye approach of, oh, you want to do this after 10 years.
Yes.
What do you do every day to get to 10 years? So they held me accountable. If I said, okay, I wanted to make ₦1 million, they said, how would you want to make ₦1 million? Oh, I have to sell 5 bottles of water every day. Okay. Who are you going to sell the bottle of water to? Okay, I'm going to sell to XYZ. And they would hold me accountable. They would call me and say, have you sold the bottle of water? And it started from very simple things. It didn't have to be big. It was just like basic habits. I remember a friend of mine who was in the group who said, well, I just want to be able to brush my teeth every day, every night before I go to bed. And that's what I had to do. I had to call him and say, have you done that? I had to hold him accountable, because you think it's the big things, but it's the tiny things too that you do every day. So I think that was an experience that was profound, having somebody hold me accountable for my big dreams, but also to take like a warm approach to make sure that I was doing what needed to be done every day to make the big dream happen. So those are just some of the things, some of the good things I got from the group, right? But I'll just stop here.
Okay. Thank you so much. You mentioned the book, The Obstacle is the Way,
Yes.
by Ryan Holiday, as one of the books that really stood out to you.
Right.
You also did mention that you were quite intrigued by the fact that the books were tailored and they targeted the mind.
Right.
The mind, you said rightly, Kesmap, is the foundation. If we don't get that right, it's going to reflect in our career, in our businesses, in our relationships.
I totally agree with you.
So, Kesmap,
Right.
could you list the number of books that helped you on your journey to laying the right foundation for your mind?
Okay, so another book that was profound, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Why? Because first habit is begin with the end in mind. Critical. It sounds quite basic, right? But it starts with thinking that, so establishing that the human being has the ability to imagine the future. And from seeing the future, you come back to the beginning. So you do everything, imagine the end. And that ability to be proactive determines the next steps of actions you will take to make the end happen. Profound. It speaks on several other habits that I think are very essential to being great at what you do, or to be excellent in whatever you decide to do. But the ability to sort of delay gratification, to do things not because it's expedient, but because it's meaningful. So don't do things just for the now. Do things for tomorrow. Think bigger. So delay. It's like saying you want to be fit, right? You want to be fit at the end of the year. So you're going to delay gratification. You're going to have that ice cream, because that was one of my goals to my health. I had a health goal. I had a health goal, right? So I would have to do things that were uncomfortable. And that spoke to me, because I think growing up, you imagine that life has to be pleasant and everything that is good has to be pleasant. That's what we're taught, that pleasure and happiness is what life is about. But I understood that growth comes in very uncomfortable places. That's what obstacle is the way taught me. He taught me that obstacle is the way. The obstacle in the path becomes the path.
Mm.
You know, many times we want the obstacle out of the way, but that obstacle is a path. So you grow in places of discomfort. So it's not about just saying I want to lose weight. It means when everybody is sleeping, when the bed is saying that's the best place to be, when your mind is telling you that why are you suffering? You're not even seeing results. When it's dark, when it's raining, get up and run. I remember there's a quote that says, you know, running is not about winning. It's about convincing yourself that you can do this despite the odds. And I think understanding that obstacle and pain and discomfort was a place where growth happened was huge for me, because all this while I imagined that pleasure was the way, that happiness was the way. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying pleasure is bad. I'm not saying happiness is bad. It's just
I
that
hear you.
as people, we should learn to be uncomfortable if we want progress. And I would say obstacles the way made that very clear to me. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People showed me how to sort of think, see the bigger picture and plan my habits in such a way that success was imminent. Then compound effect tells you that tiny things matter, right? That, you know, I was having a conversation, you know, and I was talking about investments, and a lot of us think about investments in terms of the big amount of money, but no, it's the tiny, tiny things you put that compounds over time. So what is critical in this sense? We think about time, we think about patience, and we think about compounding. So when you tell people to invest, they say, "Oh, I don't have the money," but it might be 2,000 naira, but give it time and let it compound. So it's weird because a principle I got from that book was, in the beginning, everything looks like nothing is happening when you're doing tiny, tiny things.
True.
But it gets to a point where there's an up and there's a down. So something dips, something goes up, and you're like, wow, how did this happen? But no, it's over time. So the guy who becomes a loser, it didn't just happen in one day.
True.
It was habits that happened over time. The person who becomes successful didn't just happen overnight. It was habits that you couldn't see. So it's like the idea of a tree, and it says a tree, or is it the Chinese bamboo, that grows roots deep in the ground before it shoots up. So the principle of compounding is that everything manifests in time, and those tiny habits that you might take for granted have the potential to either break or make. So just some of the few books that we read, but we read more. I think we read about 10 books, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I can't remember all of the names. If I don't know if you remember some of them.
Yeah, I do remember. The first book we started with was a very tiny book by James Allen. Yeah.
Yes, As a Man Thinketh.
As a Man.
Fantastic book. I think that was the foundation. I don't know if we read Think and Grow Rich.
We did.
Incredible book.
We also read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I want you to tell me, out of all the books, that was the most controversial book, if you remember.
It was.
Some people took a liking to it. Some people thought that it was a book that taught people how to manipulate people.
But I disagree. This is what I think about the book. I thought it was a great book because the quote for me that stood out in the book is that everybody feels they're a champion in their own head. So, and it's profound because, you know, you think of that, you think people are thinking about you, but no, everybody's literally thinking about themselves. How they are being perceived, how they are superstars, and you have to acknowledge that in everybody you meet. So everybody wants to be treated with respect, and everybody wants to be treated well. And that's a big way to influence people. And I thought that was critical. So you meet the guy who's a janitor or the guy who's buying you food, and you first don't degrade the person. You know that this person wants some form of dignity. This person sees himself like a star, and you say, you know what, you look beautiful today. It's not manipulation, it's acknowledging the human need for respect. And when you establish that, it's easy to make friends. They like you because it's like the South African word that says, is it Ubuntu? Ubuntu is like, I see you. It's like, I see you. It's like, I acknowledge you as a person. And I think everybody wants that sense of acknowledgement. So I thought it was a great book. I know it was kind of divided, but I saw the need to acknowledge people, the need to accept who they were as human beings. And that for me was remarkable. I would say it changed my perspective.
Yeah.
It changed how I related with people, how I, dealt with my relationships.
Mm.
And I would say it made me some few friends as well. I'll be honest.
Would you say you are introverted or extroverted? And I'm asking this because you said that book helped you to make a few friends.
Right. I would like
In the
to,
group, in the mastermind or outside?
I,
Like
I
you
would
applied
say,
it both
I
within
would
and
say,
outside.
yeah, I would say outside and inside as well. Inside the group
Hmm.
and with my dealings with people.
Okay.
I would like to say I'm somewhere in between, a fine balance
Okay.
of being an introvert and an extrovert. I tend to think my introversion takes preeminence sometimes
Mm.
because as much as I might enjoy a good conversation or enjoy hanging out with friends,
You like to
I
retreat.
really cherish, yes, because I think in those moments of retreat is where creativity happens. I like to think I'm a very creative person. I am. It's not like I like to think. I am a very creative person. And
Absolutely.
in those spaces is when I create. It's in the quietness. It's
Mm.
in the thought process, in just being away from people and analyzing what has happened and in the study. So yes, I would say we take for granted, for instance, you walk into a room
Mm.
and by nature, I would not reach out to people. I would tend to want to just mind my business, be the quiet person in the room. However, there's nothing wrong in stepping up to someone, saying hello, having a good smile,
Mm.
making eye contact, complimenting them and saying, you know what, you look really good. I
Mm.
like your hair. I like the way you look. And you make them feel good, right? And that
Absolutely.
opens the door for a lot of things. So that is one thing I would say about the group. It was total. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't just focus on us as people and our
Mm.
goals. It
Mm.
also focused on how we related to others and how we could have more influence and more impact
Mm.
in society because you want to do all these amazing things in life. You want to be successful, but if you're not touching people, if you're
Mm.
not able to connect to bring the gift of, whatever it is, your talent to people, you're not able to help them, then what is the essence? Which is a
Absolutely.
very strong philosophy of mine. So I would say in two ways. It wasn't all easy with the group. Very difficult encounters, to be frank. When you're coming at that level of intimacy with people, there will be friction.
Yeah.
There will be friction. And I think we can't say, oh, it was all peaches and ice cream
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
chocolate in
Mm-hmm.
between and cotton candy along the way. Very difficult encounters, misunderstandings,
Mm.
feeling a little overexposed.
Mm.
But I would say it was good. It was for the benefit of everyone else because it shows you your weaknesses. It shows
Mm.
you your vulnerability. It
Mm.
shows you areas of your life that you could handle better, areas of your
Mm.
life that you could deal with. So it was a very intimate experience, I would say,
Mm.
because I was meeting people that on a good day, I don't think maybe I wouldn't be relating to them and telling them about my dreams and
Sure.
my insecurities about life, but
Mm.
I was doing that. I
Mm.
was talking about things that I would keep to just people I trusted, being
Mm.
an introvert that I was.
Yeah.
So it was like out of my comfort zone, and conflict did happen sometimes. But I appreciated that we could talk about them. We could say, you know what, I felt this way because when I did this, this is how I perceived,
Mm.
and we could actually speak about very
Absolutely.
uncomfortable topics. So
Absolutely.
yes, growth did happen in
Mm.
certain areas of my life, and I thought that was amazing.
For me, this is the essence of the mastermind, really. When you are thrown into that space of less resistance,
Mm,
you're exposed to a side of you which we tend to see or call blind spots,
right.
and then we become self-aware.
Mm,
Speaking about the fact that we were in a safe place and there was conflict and all of that, I remember that during the mastermind, we were encouraged by coach to do a
right.
360-degree review.
Right.
And I don't know if you recall, everybody was supposed to tell the other what they thought they could work on.
Mm,
It was constructive. It wasn't
mm,
like destructive. It
right.
wasn't, I'm going to tell Kesmap this to destroy him. I want to tell Kesmap this so that he is aware. Peradventure, he is
Mm,
not aware. And
mm,
I will put myself on the spot
right.
just to give you an example of where I'm taking this to.
Mhm,
I remember Soji
right.
doing the 360 degrees. And when he came to me, he said, Grace, you know what? And I will never forget that phrase. He first of all started with, you're an amazing person, but
Mhm.
I would want you to let, I would want you not to let the horse ride you, ride the horse.
Mm.
So he was making reference to my emotions.
Right.
Because the emotions can be all over the place. So rather than just allow your emotions ride you,
Mm-hmm.
ride your emotions, because something can happen and I'm so like, no, this is supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be. Just try and be logical. Understand why? Because there are times where people will come late.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very disciplined and punctual
Right.
person. And that really got to me. But that being in that space made me make excuses for people and made me think that it's not about being punctual. What if you thought to consider that something could have happened
Right.
on the way to this place?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I've been able to point you in the direction that I'm hoping.
Right.
Yeah. So did you get one of those
Yeah. I
feedbacks?
think I did. I got a lot.
Mm.
You know, like I say, perception is different from what reality is. You might perceive yourself to be very patient,
Mm.
very understanding, but that's not what is happening. That's not what's happening on the outside, right?
Mm.
So yes, I did get some of those sessions. I know I was considered authoritarian in some of my approach. And
I remember when you were the taskmaster, right? During book reviews.
you know what, right? So sometimes in your mind you might have good intentions.
True.
Delivery might not be the best for different reasons. Over time we're a mixture of so many things as people, emotions, experience, maybe our insecurities to comes out in different ways, right? But it was good. It was good to get feedback, right? Because even no matter how you might have felt, you have to always say, but that's how I was perceived. And there's a term in marketing that says perception is reality. But that's how I was perceived. Even if that's not what was going on inside, I was being perceived as. So what do? I have to take a step back, approach, and look at it differently, and be like, okay, what could I have done better? What could I have done to connect more? And truthfully, it's helped me because I'm aware now. So if I'm talking to a bunch of people, I am aware of some things that are inside me that can be triggers to be like, okay, you're about to be a little bit bossy. And so I'm aware of it. I'm more patient. So it's like self-regulation. It's close to what you just spoke about your emotions tend to, and it happens because you're leading a meeting and somebody walks in late. You don't like it. You want to address it at that point, but something tells you, no, hold back because you're aware they've brought it to your attention before,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that okay, this is how I'm prone to react. But hey, what they've highlighted it to you before. You take a step back and you have a different approach to. But why I think that was possible was that we had set the foundation.
Absolutely.
So a lot of things was done in the group to help us understand our thought process and how we reacted and how our mind works. So when we sort of got feedback, we were not opposed to it.
At all.
So it was a process to grow. Like I say, growth happens in uncomfortable places. So growth did happen. I was pointed, a few things were pointed out to me about things I could have done better, and it was uncomfortable, but
It was quite
yes,
humbling.
it was. I would go home and be upset, but I'll think about it and be like, you know what? They have a point, right? They have
Yeah.
a point. My approach can be different.
Mm.
My point of view can be different.
Mm.
Yeah, we tend to be a combination of personality, experience. So I would say yes, I got uncomfortable. I might not remember all,
Mm.
because it's been such a while.
Yeah.
But I would say yes, it made me better
Mm.
because things were pointed out, things were said, and it wasn't said in a way to demean or to hurt
Mm.
or to tear down. It was said, I would say, out of love, out of concern,
Mm.
and that was good. That was good. That helped, right?
Mm.
Because you feel like a friend was trying to make you a better person as
Mm.
opposed to tearing you down. So I thought that was a lot of help when it comes to it.
Fantastic. Let us talk about the one of the exercises that we did engage
Mm-hmm.
with or in, which is the peak performance accountability partnership.
Right.
Prior to that exercise, would you say you are an accountable person?
I try to be.
Like self-accountable, like you are self-driven?
Mm.
Would you say?
Yeah, to some extent. I'm able to motivate myself,
Okay.
but I'm not 100%. I do feel, just in all honesty, there are places where I can do better. I'm aware, like, you're not being your best at this point. So yes, I mean, if your answer is, am I able to motivate myself? Yes. Am I able to hold myself accountable? Sometimes. Other times, do I slack? Yes. So yeah.
Okay. So what did the accountability exercise expose to you, reveal to you? And would you say it was worth it? Because we did a lot of exercises.
Right.
And I just want us to touch on that before we touch on others.
Right. I would say it was, because you kind of borrow from people's strengths, right? So you have a partner. I guess everybody was accountable. We had a circle, right? You had to hold a couple of people accountable. So you would pick certain things about certain people and how they did things. Some people were very disciplined in terms of how they approach their goals, and you might not have had that level of discipline in your life towards your goal, but someone calling you every time and saying, have you done this? This is what you're supposed to do. And sometimes you'd be like, well, I'm not that strict on myself, but you would appreciate the level of accountability this person was bringing to your life, and you kind of see where you need to step up. It's like, okay, you know what? I need to step up. And that, the thing about those kind of exercises, right, is that even if the fruit doesn't show, the seed has been sown.
Fantastic.
So even if you don't score 100%, you don't get 100 of 100, maybe you score 60. When you find yourself falling on your goals, you kind of hear that person's voice. You're like, you know what? If Grace was here, Grace would have been giving me a call saying, you're slacking. You need to. So it just kind of wakes you up, right? So I think awareness is what is important. That when you are held and you're held accountable, you see your flaws. You see where you could step up.
Yeah.
You see where you could do better, and that informs your approach to a lot of things. So I would say yes, it was a great exercise on my part. I thought it was good, and it's something that up to today I use. I have people who I'm accountable to. So when I have a goal, I tell a friend, I'm like, I'm trying to accomplish this. I need you to hold me accountable. At the beginning of the year, these are the things I said I wanted to do. The tendency is that I'm not going to do them if I don't have somebody saying, because I'll make excuses. I'll be like, you know what? You try again next year, right? But so it's not something that I have stopped doing. There are people I'm accountable to. There are friends I call who I know are equally disciplined, and I'm like, these are the things I want to achieve. They equally share their own, and I'm like, you know what? We're going to have a review every other week, and you're going to hold me accountable to the things I said I was going to do. It's almost like, when you have a meeting and you don't set action items, nothing gets done.
Exactly.
And I think that's what accountability is the action items. And someone asks you, hey, have you done A? And have you done B? And have you done C? Or else it's just going to be words and no action.
Wow. Kesmap, you're just like dropping some brownie points, right here. And I hope that our listeners are really taking notes. Speaking about another exercise, which is the book reviews. I apologize in advance that I'm going to call you out on that one.
Well, growth happens in uncomfortable places. So I believe at the end of it will be growth. So that's fine.
Do you remember an incident where we all had to submit our book reviews?
Right.
And when Coach came to one of the meetings where we were supposed to submit book reviews and also give a review, everybody was in the room, but we couldn't find you.
All right.
You remember where you were?
I can't remember. Can you remind me?
You were downstairs trying to complete your book review.
All right.
Why did you think you felt that urgency and need to do that? I mean, nobody was going to hold up a cane and flog anyone.
Huh.
Do you remember?
I do remember.
Okay.
Even if I don't remember, it's something I can do. So it makes sense. But I remember. I do remember. Well, you know what? Like I said, I think we always have to look at ourselves from history. And we're a combination of many things, right? So if I didn't have the mastermind, I would not have known that there's a tendency to be a perfectionist that is somewhere in my subconscious. So I like things, in my mind, the way I think it should be. It might not be what it is, but like I have to do it, right? I have to be perfect. So I felt like maybe I would not have felt as accomplished if I hadn't completed or had done it, right? Which necessarily might not have mattered at that point in time. Because sometimes flaws are okay.
Yeah.
Because we tend to think as people that we have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect, right? Recently I was talking to a friend, and he's a musician, and he he wrote a song. It's called Far From Perfect, and he dealt with depression. And when I listened to the song, we started talking about the song. He's like, well, the song just reminds us that we're all human, far from perfect. And I'm saying this because I think that just came from a point of needing to have things perfect, right? So yes, that is something I can do. That's something that I understand can be a problem, even in dealing with people or dealing with situations or constantly looking for perfection. And I would say, right, that has also kind of hindered my art because you don't want to launch that business. You don't want to put out that music. You don't want to do whatever it is because you're waiting for perfection. You're waiting for it to be perfect, but perfection is a myth. It's not impossible. It means like excellence is not impossible. But the concept of perfection, nothing is perfect. Everything is constantly in a state of almost being perfect, right? So what you have to do is put it out there as long as it's excellent. So now that has informed the way I look at life. I look more for excellence. And being an artist as well as a musician, I honestly feel like everything is art. Everything is in the form of how it should be. So yes, maybe that informs me wanting to complete my review before I come up, but that has also exposed something about my thought process that I've sort of had to work on as a person. That the concept of, and then again, it's also has highlighted some things I can do better. So time management is something that I've improved upon, how I manage my time, because if I had managed my time well, I would have been, and why am I saying this? Sometimes we don't do the things we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do them because we assume there's time. Like, right, there's always time to do things. However, awareness is critical. And I think that's what every human being needs, because I finished talking about perfection. No one is perfect, but what you need is to be aware of your weaknesses. So if I know I have a time problem, then, and I need to get to a meeting, what am I going to do to make sure that time is not a problem, or arriving punctual is not a problem? Do I need to wake up early? Do I need to set an alarm? Do I need to have people hold me accountable? Do I need to make it a habit? So these are some of the things that we need to keep reinforcing as people. So I would say, out of that whole experience, let me tell you what has changed, right?
Please.
Time. I'm sort of a better time manager. I understand the importance of planning before I execute. Like, what needs to be done can be planned for and completed in adequate time. 2, acceptance of what we may consider as imperfect and not constantly look for perfection. That has informed the way I see business. That has informed the way I see my art. That has informed the way I see people. Because you don't demand too much from any situation, whether it's people or even your art or even your work. Always leave room for improvement, leave room for error, and accept it when it comes, and as an opportunity to grow, right? So this is just some of the few things I would say about the book review. I don't know if you have any more. Hopefully not. Hopefully you don't remember any crazy thing I did.
No. I don't. Okay, I do. Let me be honest, but we're not going to go in that direction.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. The other things I remember about you were amazing things. So fear not, I'm not going to put you on the spot. While you were speaking, I had to ask this question. Why are we so consumed with perfection? Where did that originate from?
Okay, so, wow. I would say for me, right, I look at things in terms of culture and society. Nigerians are very driven people. You have to give it up to Nigerians. What position did you come? Second. Who took first? Are they better than you? Right? Your child doesn't come first, it's a problem. And the child might not be a science student. He might just be an artist. He wants to just paint. That's what God has put him on the earth to be. You want to be a what? You want to be a painter. So we tend to have very high expectations of people. We don't cut people slack. In our culture, I'm not saying that other cultures are not driven. The Japanese culture is equally very driven, where
I
people
absolutely agree.
commit suicide because they don't do well, right? I think another very driven culture is Nigeria. And even though we have our little flaws here and there, I think when it comes to the idea of success, maybe that informs the way we drive, because everybody is trying to. There's one space and 7 cars are trying to get into one space because everybody's competing, as opposed to, you know what, we can queue. It doesn't matter if Grace goes first, Femi goes second. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. So I think we live in a very, even as much as we don't think we do, Nigeria is a very high demanding society. And because of that, I think we all grew up with a fear of failure from when we were kids. We were made to feel bad for not doing well. I remember breaking a glass was a big deal. And even if it was a mistake, you would worry so much about the backlash that would come. So I think that is where, in my head, for me, that's where the need to be perfect comes. And we have to be very deliberate to deconstruct some of these feelings we have as people, because or else we'll hold ourselves to very unrealistic expectations. We'll be very hard on ourselves. They're telling you that your friend just did this, your friend just bought a house. Not knowing that everybody sort of moves at their pace. Your colleagues are getting married. So you find people worrying about things they shouldn't worry about. And when I travel, when I go visiting my friends in other countries, I kind of see how easy life is sometimes. It's like, you're not married. What's the big deal? It will happen when it happen. Nobody's really beating themselves up for not accomplishing so much. Now, it can be a blessing and it can be a curse too, because one thing I'll tell you is that Nigeria is a country of leaders, to be honest. You can tell when you travel to other countries, you see how they are just reserved, laid back. Nobody's really trying to get to the front of the line, like I said. By the time you are entering Nigeria, you see the aggression.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, why can't you guys just relax? We are all going to pass. Let's just join the queue. But no, it's a country of leaders, which is good, which can also be bad, because what happens is you don't consider the next person. You're not thoughtful. You're not kind. And then you hold people to very high standards, which sometimes a bit unfair. That's why you hear some of the comments. I've had to fight with people when they say things like, oh, that. I'm like, yeah, but everybody grows at their pace.
Yeah.
That child that is not doing very well in math can do well in math. It just depends on how you allow the child to grow at their pace, or how you teach them. You can't start saying, oh, Femi passed, you are failing, and you're comparing and all. So I think that's where that comes from, the need to constantly appeal to society, the need to constantly be perfect, right? And that's what I freed myself of. I freed myself of the worry to be perfect, right? You just have to be excellent. That's my thing, is be excellent. You don't have to be perfect, but be excellent. So excellence is possible. Perfection, I don't think is possible. Nobody's perfect, right? But excellence is what is possible. So dedication, hard work, repetition, you will find excellence in those things.
Thank you so much, Kesmap. You said something about deconstructing this mindset of perfection. And for you, you said you've decided to make that decision to free yourself. Are there other pointers or suggestions you could give to someone out there who is held bound by this perfectionist tendency?
Right. Well, it's to first accept that you're human. And if you're human, you're going to not be perfect. That's one. You have to love yourself. I think it comes from a place of acceptance, right? You don't have to be the finest person in the room. If this person is taller than you, you don't have to be tall. You're just perfect and wonderful the way you are. People, it sounds like, but that has hurt a lot of people much more. You don't know what people are dealing with. You don't know what pain people are dealing with. So that has, I would say, for one, accept yourself for how you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You're good. You're excellent the way you are. And then you're in competition with no one but yourself. So there's a book I read, and it says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, but don't compare yourself to who someone is today. So you're only in competition with yourself. So you just try to improve, whether it's 1%. If you wanted to do 2 push-ups and you only did 1 yesterday, and you can do 2 today, just give yourself a thumbs up. Say, yeah, you know what, I did 2 push-ups today. It doesn't matter if Mr. X is doing 10 push-ups. The focus should be on you. No matter how marginal the progress is, just keep getting better. That's why I say repetition leads to excellence. Look at yourself. What can I do today? I wanted to do, maybe at the end of the month, I only do 10 push-ups. But your goal is just to improve every day, and focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Focus on what you're doing. Don't look at what anybody else is doing. Don't hold yourself to the standards that anybody else is holding. And it's tough, right? Because you're constantly reminded of what,
You can say that again.
right, this person is doing, what that person is doing. Your mates are buying houses. And I like the way the guy put it. He says, you know what, you might look at someone. I say, you know what, I like the success this person has, but you don't know what the problems he has. You don't know if he's on cocaine. You don't know if he's dealing with XYZ. And if they showed you his complete life, you might be like, you know what,
I'm good where I
like
am.
my life the way it is. I don't want what I'm seeing, right? We never know. We never know how deep. I've had to deal with few family members who have had to feel like they were not doing enough. And I looked at them and I would say, you're doing enough, right? And they will say, no, but my friend is doing this. But I say, you know, but look at it this way. Look at where you started from and look at where you are now. All I see is growth. And you're not giving yourself enough. You're not giving yourself enough kudos for that. And you know why you're being ungrateful? You're looking at the next person. You are not celebrating your victories. You're not seeing how far you've come, right? And that is the problem. I think genuinely people need to focus on themselves, right? And that's why I like running.
Wow.
Running teaches you to compete with yourself. The goal is not to be the person who finishes the marathon. It's that you put one step in front of the other and you fight everything that is telling you to stop. Your body is telling you this thing is hard. The weather is not friendly. But you are telling yourself that I'm going to conquer myself. And running teaches you to be in battle with yourself. And I would say that's how people need to handle this fear of wanting to be perfect. Don't look at it as perfection. Look at it as incremental improvements. What did I do yesterday? What did I improve upon what I did yesterday? So if you were trying to learn how to read, don't see that, oh my God, Grace reads 10 books in a week. No. I read 1 page today and I slept. The next day I read 2 pages. See, I did well. Day after that, I read 3 pages. I read 4 pages. And that's how growth happens. That's how excellence happens. So my take is that's how you fight the fear of perfection. That's how you fight the fear that you are not enough, right? And that's how you see progress. So honestly, I would just tell people, accept who you are. Celebrate your victories. Celebrate the tiny wins. Don't give yourself an excuse not to be hard. I'm not excusing being lazy or whatever it is, but just
or mediocrity.
No, but just be in competition with yourself. Do not compare yourself with people, right? They have done what they're supposed to do. They're running their own race, to be honest. But then focus on yourself, and that way you can deal with the worry of comparison or imperfection or whatever it is. So yeah, those are just a few pointers. I'm not an authority in this, but it has worked for me, I'll be honest.
And I'm sure it will work for someone out there too.
Hopefully.
On a final note, because I am so engrossed in this conversation, I do not want to let you go, but let's just see if we can touch on a few things.
Right.
You mentioned gratitude in the course of trying to explain how anyone dealing with this stronghold of perfection can slightly gravitate away from it,
right?
Not comparing, and also being grateful,
right?
Looking back and seeing how far you've come,
right?
And that took me back to an exercise we did during the Clarity Retreat,
right?
The gratitude journal. How was that experience for you?
Oh, really good. You know, I think it was very good. I think we forget every day how much we should be grateful for. Recently, I had an experience where I was looking at more things I hadn't done and things I hadn't accomplished and not seeing how far I had come. And I was in conversation with a cousin of mine, and we spoke, and she just said, you're not grateful.
Wow.
You're not grateful. You should ask God for forgiveness. That's how she put it. She said, because you've come so far, and all you're telling God is that you're ungrateful to God because you are looking at everything else that you think hasn't happened. And she said, you know what? You are doing better than a lot of people that you think are doing better than you. Forget the facade, right? And she it's not as much as what she said, but she made me pause. And why I'm saying this is that, even though we had that exercise, I totally forgot. It was not something I was applying in my life, right? I wasn't deliberately keeping like a gratitude journal. I was not looking at the little wins. And they don't have to be wins. They can be very tiny things. You woke up and you were healthy. You woke up and you know what? I'm excited about today. I'm alive, right? That's an opportunity. Now, let me tell you, one thing, profound lesson I learned in gratitude was from my mechanic.
Wow.
I was having a conversation. I said, the fuel subsidy had just happened, and he was fixing my car. And I said, Ogatoni, how are you coping? Nigeria is hard, and I was just like, the economy is hard. And, I was expecting him to just have complaints and just say, yeah, things are hard. And he just says, well is life? There's hope.
Wow.
He had such a positive attitude. He wasn't bothered. And I paused and I'm just saying, he's not complaining. He sees it that, well, you know what? I'm grateful I'm alive, which means I can make life better. It doesn't matter what the economy is saying. And what I saw was, here I am looking at things that I can't control. So it's like back to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Things within your area of concern, things within your area of influence. He couldn't control the price of fuel. He could control how he reacted to it.
Oh.
And when he said that, I paused and I'm just like, here I am worrying about everything that is not within my sphere of influence, right? And when he said that, I just remembered that you have to be grateful for the little things that you have. And don't worry about the things you don't have. Focus on what you can manage, what is in your hands, what can you control, what can you do, what are the things right in front of you. And I think that's an attitude that we should all have. That way would be more grateful for the little blessings that come in very little ways. It can be the person who offered you help when you needed it. It could be the guy who just gave you direction when you needed it. It's the guy, the gate man who just told you, oh, you're looking for this, because it happens in different ways. It's weird that I was coming here and I noticed that there's like a lot of iron work happening outside and a lot of people that do a lot of iron work. And I was grateful. I'm like, you know what? I've been looking for people to help me with iron work. And I'm just like, wow, and being able to tune your mind to be grateful for a lot of things that happen that we think are inconsequential or don't matter. So I think, yes, the gratitude journal, even from now, it just reminds me to keep on, to write these things down, to write the things I'm grateful for, not the things that I can't control, things I don't have. And I think those are your areas of concern, but your area of influence, things you can control, those are the things you should be thankful for,
Absolutely. Kesmap, you said something very powerful. You made a powerful statement. I never saw it in that light. You said it's not just about being grateful for the tiniest things. It's about being grateful for the opportunity. So you could wake up today and you may not have achieved that tiny win. But guess what? The opportunity to still be alive.
Right.
And breathe and get up and take a bath is an opportunity. It may not be a win, but it's an opportunity.
It is.
Thank you so much. I never saw it in that light. I always used to think that being grateful is about being thankful for things and the little things. But I see it differently now because you have opened my eyes to see that it's not just about the things.
Right.
An opportunity is something to be grateful for.
It is. Because you think about it, what separates successful people and people that are not successful is opportunity. It's how they see opportunity. It's the opportunities that are placed there, in their way. Like the guy who's in prison, his freedom has been taken from him.
Yeah.
And I think that's the worst thing you can do to anybody. Just not give them the chance to express themselves as human beings. But you have that opportunity. I think that's a huge thing to be grateful for. Right? Because in that realm of opportunity, it's seed for possibility. Anything can happen, depending on how you decide to engage it. And that, for me, is the winner's mindset. The winner's mindset is you see the glass half full.
Not half empty.
Not half empty.
Wow. Kesmap, we've read a lot of books. And I know that during the book reviews, there was a part where we were supposed to list at least 3 quotes that resonated with us. Do you remember any quote? Or do you remember any saying? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but
I don't remember.
Okay.
Do you remember any of my quotes?
No, I mean quotes from the books that
From the book,
we've
right,
read.
right.
One I remember so much is by Stephen Covey,
Mm,
which says, when you think the problem is out there, that very thought is the problem.
mm,
Another book, another quote that I remember is from the book The Road Less Traveled.
mm.
That first line, life is difficult. The moment we realize that life is difficult, life no longer becomes difficult.
Fair enough. I agree. I agree. I said we've been tuned to think life is about happiness.
Pleasure.
You can be happy. It's good, right? But don't expect life to be easy.
Mm.
Don't expect life to be easy. And I think there was a quote in my secondary school that they used to say, and it was always, I think, was it that you take the road that is rough and narrow.
Mm.
And I was just like, why would that even be a quote? Why did they tell you to take the road that is rough and narrow? I'm like, what? I hated the quote. It didn't make sense because I'm like, that just tells me suffer.
Mm.
It doesn't say anything about enjoyment, basically, right?
Mm.
But the older I am now, the more I see it. Life will throw things you did not plan for, right? You will lose a loved one. You might have an accident. You might have opportunities taken from you, right? You might have many things happen to you, but how are you going to react to these things? Are you going to grovel and, but I truly believe like my mechanic, he chose to just have a different attitude. He chose to understand life was not going to be pleasant, but he made the best out of it, right? And those quotes are very profound, right? Because I think as people, we tend to just always, and it's part of our culture too, where we think life is about jaye, enjoyment, and it's anything that is considered out of these things is not God's will for our life. We pray it in church, we only want, but sometimes, honestly, I think like the experience of growth, I always believe happens in uncomfortable places, and I haven't seen growth happen where there's no effort, right? So even I would like to use working out as an example because I think working out, exercising is very typical to life. Where you want to see effort, where you want to see like improvements, is going to be uncomfortable. Everything about exercise tells you to quit. This is not, what are you doing this for?
Yeah.
First of all, you do 100 skips, you're not going to see the improvement. You stand in front of the mirror and you're like, why did I go through so much pain? Right? Or your body aches the next day and everything is saying quit. But it has to compound. You have to be focused. You have to do it for 5 months. Don't quit. Don't miss a day. Then you start seeing effects. I lost weight once and I was trying to describe it to my friend.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. I told her I ran in the rain. I said, I saw significance because even when it was raining, I would get out and I would jog. Nothing was standing in the way of my goal. It didn't matter if the weather was raining. I would say, well, you know what? I'm going to run. I had proposed to run 5 a.m. I'd wake up, it's drizzling. I would get up and I would run in the rain. And that was the only time I saw like significant improvement. And it taught me a lot about life. That even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unpleasant, you have to trudge through, and that's why, I remember what book, what was it? Was it Viktor Frankl, where he's
the Man's Search for Meaning,
where he speaks about being captured and being in the Nazi camps. And he said the people who died were the optimists and they died out of a heartbreak because they always believed they were going to be rescued. But he was a realist. He dealt with the situation and he made the best out of it. And he said, look, this is what's happening to me, right? And he was able to survive very difficult. So I think sometimes always looking for enjoyment, always looking for what is pleasant, always looking for what is easy and what is soft is not where growth happens. And the more people can focus on understanding that success is not going to be easy, it's rewarding. It is very rewarding, right? And it makes the difference. After 5 months, you've put yourself through that journey and you look back and you see how much it then makes sense. Everything makes sense. All the sleepless nights, all the hard work makes sense. But when it's happening, at the moment it's happening, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And everything that it's, the instant gratification that we're all prone to do as human beings, right? Like I remember I was having a conversation and I said the difference also between people I've seen that are very successful and those that don't exactly become successful is that People who are successful delay gratification.
Mm.
They forego watching that movie to go and read.
Mm.
You want to watch the movie. You want to go and do, but they'll tell you, no, we can't go out. All my friends who did very well in school were people who sacrificed their social life to go and read everything that was considered pleasant, right? And I think that is a concept. That is a concept of pain. That is a concept of hard work. That is a concept of accepting that what is uncomfortable might be what's good for you, right?
Yeah. And on that note, we've come to the end of today's podcast.
Right.
I am so thankful, Kesmap, to you for sharing so much knowledge and insight. And I hope that anyone out there who is looking to grow understand that growth takes a process. Growth is not pretty, it's uncomfortable. And in order to move from point A to point B, you have to really understand that you can't do that constantly gyrating. Until the next episode of the Mastermind podcast, stay well. Thank you for listening. And once again, today's episode has been sponsored by Cleveland Homes, where you dream it and they build it. If you found this podcast very valuable, please feel free to like and share and subscribe. You can find us on our YouTube channel, GM4. You can find us on YouTube, the Mastermind Podcast, and Spotify, the Mastermind Podcast. Thank you.